Alright, hello parents and students. This video is created to help us remember our multiplication facts. We're going to take the facts that are easy for us to remember and use them and apply them, work them and manipulate them so that they can help us with some of the more challenging facts. I'm going to be highlighting some of the facts that are easy, some of the facts that carry throughout every single fact set, so that we can see just how many we already know simply by knowing the simple ones, the easy ones. Alright, so we'll start off with the zeros. Here's our little fact sheet reminder. So we're going to start off with the zeros. These are the easiest to remember simply because anytime you multiply a number by 0, the answer will always be 0. The product itself will be 0 anytime we multiply a number by 0. Okay, so moving on. In the ones fact family, these are easy just like the zeros because 1 times any number will equal itself. So I went ahead and highlighted these just to show 1 times itself equals itself. Alright, I'm going to do that for the other fact families too. So we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. I'm not going to worry about doing the 10s, 11s, and 12s just yet. Just focusing on 1 through 9s. Okay? So simple enough there. Now let's move on to the 2s. The 2s are easy, simple to remember because we are very familiar with skip counting. We skip count by 2s. And we also are pretty familiar with doubling numbers to an extent until they get larger. We're pretty good at doubling numbers. So when we skip count, that's just counting by 2s, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and so on. When we double, we want to double the factor that's being multiplied. So for example, if we take 2 times 7, we can skip count by 2s 7 times to land on 14. Or we can take 7 and double it, or thinking of it as 7 plus 7, to make 14. So we're doubling the factor that's being multiplied by 2 to find that product. So I'm going to now highlight those all the way through the 9s. And then we got to go for each family. Highlight these. There we go. Alright, so the next fact family that is very simple and easy for us to remember are the 5s. We are all able to count by 5s fairly easy, even up to very, very large numbers. 5 and 10 are one of our go-to numbers when we skip count. So these are the next set of facts that are familiar and easy for us to remember because skip counting by 5s is just it's one of the things that we're taught in the younger grades, and it's something that we can continue to use as we get older. Skip count by 5s. Okay, so I'm going to highlight all of our 5s, and also in each family. This guy. Okay, so now that we've gotten the easiest ones out of the way, where do we go from here? I like to think of the next set of facts easy to remember as either the 4s or the 9s. Okay, and the reason for this, if we know, one thing that we know about our 4s is that it is a double. If we double 2, we will get 4. So we can use the knowledge that we have from our 2 family, the 2 fact family, to help us out with our 4 facts. Okay, so let's think about, let's think if we take the fact 4 times 8. Okay, 4 times 8 may not be a fact that we know immediately in our head, but if we go back over to our 2s, if we take half of 4, that makes 2. So 2 times 8. 2 times 8 makes 16. We will double that to make 32. So we're taking half of 4 and then doubling it. We can do that for any of the facts for 4. Another way to think about it is by taking our 5s, instead of just the 2s, we can go to the 5s and thinking about each of these as groups of things. let's take one group away from each fact. So let's say 5 times 8, we can skip count by 5s 8 times to make 40. Thinking of it as 5 groups of 8 to make 40. If we take one group of 8 away, that would be taking 8 away from 40 to make 32. So if we take one group away from one of our 5s, 5 like we were using 5 times 8, if we take one group away, 5 groups of 8, now 4 groups of 8, 5 groups of 8 makes 40, 4 groups of 8 is 8 less than that, 32. So by using either of these two strategies, by doubling the 2's to make 4, doubling any of the products for any of our 2 facts to make the 4 facts, we can find those products. So by doing that, we're able to eliminate and understand all of the facts in the 4's. So now we've knocked out our 1's, our 2's, our 4's, and our 5's. Let's think about our 9's now, because the 9's are similar to one of the strategies that we used for the 4's. So in our 9's, I like to tell our students that 9 is really close to a friendly number. 9 is really close to the 10 facts. And so the 10's we're able to think of very quickly, because just like counting by 5's, we're able to count by 10's just as fast, if not faster, up to really, really large numbers. And in the same way that we thought about taking a group away from the 5 fact to make our 4's, we can do the same thing for the 10's. All right, so we'll use the example of 10 times 6. So 10 times 6 makes 60. And if I'm looking to find 9 times 6, in terms of groups of 6 here, 10 groups of 6, one group of 6 less than that is 9 groups of 6. So 6 less than 60 makes 54. And there's also a really neat pattern that is developed when we focus on our 9's and our 9's facts. Let me show you. If you've noticed, I'll scoot paper up a little bit too. If you notice, for each of the products of 9, we start off 9 times 1 makes 9. For each of the factors that we use after 1, we have a new digit in the 10's place along with a number in the 1's place. We start with 9 in the 1's place, and for every factor that we multiply on down, the digit in the 1's place decreases by 1 and the 10's place increases by 1. So 9 times 2, we have a 1 in the 10's place and 8 1's. Also notice that if we combine both of these together, it adds to make 9. Alright, 9 times 3, we have 2 in the 10's place, 7 in the 1's, 1 less than 8. Both of these combine to make 9. Alright, so all of these, in the same way that we used the 5's to help us find the 4, we can use the 10's by taking one group away to find the 9's. So we can eliminate these. There's also a little hand trick. I choose not to teach it to the students because it shows it's just a quick way of memorizing. I like to think about it in terms of the groups, like I mentioned before, because it's very helpful once we actually get into the process of multiplying and using strategies later on. All right, the next set of facts that we're going to focus on are going to be the 3's. Okay, so in the same way that we were taking a group away from the 5's, the facts of 5 and the 10's, we're going to do the same thing, except instead of taking away, we will add 1. All right, so our group of 2, our facts over here. We have our 2's, easy to remember, skip count by 2's, okay? So instead of taking away a group, we're going to add a group. So let's say we're having a difficult time remembering 3 times 7. 3 times 7. If we go back over to our 2's, 2 times 7 is easy to remember. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Or 7 plus 7 makes 14, all right? So if we add one more group of 7 to that, 7 plus 14 makes 21. So we have 3 groups of 7 now instead of just the 2. 2 groups of 7 plus one more group of 7, 3 groups of 7 to make 21. And we are able to do this for each of the facts in our 2's. So we can memorize those by that. So see, already we have knocked out a bunch of our facts. Really all that's left are 6's, our 7's, and our 8's. Now one thing I haven't done, I haven't continued to mark out across the categories. So we marked out our 3's, so I can finish marking these out because 7 times 3 and 3 times 7, they both come out to have the same product. Alright, let's see, we did 4's, 7 times 4 and 8 times 4. Okay. So now all that's left is really the second half of the 6's, the 7's, and the 8's. 6 times 6 all the way through 9, 7 times 6 all the way through 9, and so on. Okay? And so now let's think about how we can memorize just these that are remaining. Sometimes students like to memorize the square numbers. So like 5 times 5, 4 times 4, 3 times 3, 2 times 2, and 1 times 1, all the way continuing on up. So 6 times 6 is 36, 7 times 7, 8 times 8, and 9 times 9. Okay. So just as we did with 2's and the 3's, we can help remember the rest of the 6's. In the same way that we doubled the 2 to make 4, we can double our facts of 3 to make 6. Alright, so if I'm having a difficult time remembering 6 times 9, and I know my 3 times 9, I can double that. Alright, so 3 times 9 I know is 27. Okay, so let's go back and double 27. 20 plus 20 is 40, 7 plus 7 is 14, so 40 and 14 make 54. Okay, so we can knock out the rest of those by doubling or by adding one more group to the 5's. So 6 times 9, 5 times 9 is 45. Add one more group of 9. 9 plus 45 makes 54. All right. Now the 7's are a little more tricky because they sit in the middle. They sit in the middle of two friendly numbers, 5 and 10. All right. 7 is a prime number, so there's not exactly a pattern that we can follow like we've done in the 9's place or like in the 5's or even the 6's or 8's or any of the other ones. It's a prime number, and so that makes the pattern more difficult to follow. There's not a pattern that we can follow. All right. So here it's just as simple. Well, it's not as simple, I should say, but we've got to use our resources and understanding how far away they are from landmarks. Instead of one group away, it's 2 groups away. Okay, so we know 7 times 9 from our 9's facts, so we'll mark that one. We know 7 times 6 from our 6 facts. Okay, so that really just leaves, if we memorize the square number 7 times 7, really just leaves 7 times 8. And so I'll get to the 8's in just a second, but the example here we can think about is if we know our 4's, since 8 is one of the other factors, half of 8 is 4. So if we can remember what 4 times 8 is, all right, I'm sorry, excuse me, 4 times 7. There we go. So if we're looking at 7 times half of 8, which is 4, 7 times 4 makes 28. So then if we double 28, that would make 56. So the big strategy here, if you can't already tell, doubling and halving, or adding 1 or 2 groups more to the product. Okay? So our 8's, we can take half of 8, which is 4. Half of 8, which is 4, if we know our facts for that. 8 times 6. 3 times 6. No, I'm sorry. 4 times 6. That's what I mean to say. 4 times 6 is 24. So then we double that, and that makes 48. Man, it's been a long day. You can tell my mind is worn. So forgive me for that little slip up right there on that 8 times 6. Okay. Finally, 8 times 7, as we did just in the one before. And then 8 times 9. Okay. So you see, if we know some of the facts in each and every single one of the sets, we can eliminate them and narrow them down so it doesn't seem so overwhelming when they're all here together. All right? So helping us remember the 3's, add one more group to the 2 family. Four, we can double the 2's fact family, or take one group away. From the 5 family. Okay, whenever the 5's. With the 6's, we can either double the 3's or add a group to the 5's. Alright, I'll come back to the 7's in a moment. 8, we can double the 4's. To help us remember. The 9's, we can take one group away. From the 10's group. And so with the 7's, we said, for the most part, we can use what we know already from the other families to help us, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2, like 7 times 7, which is the square number, using what we know about the 8's and the 9's and all of the others. So we use knowledge. So really the 7's are the last group that we should focus on when we're memorizing our facts, because they are so odd, since 7 is a prime number. Alright, so there we have it. Scoot this over so you can see it a little bit better. Pause on it, take a look at it. Hopefully this is helpful. I know it's not the most conventional way to memorize your facts. It's not, you know, speed drills like we did in school back way in the day, years and years ago. But it is helpful. It builds more understanding in the long run, especially when we get to our multiplication unit. And I find it will be very beneficial later on. So I hope this has been helpful. As always, I appreciate any feedback that you may have. Shoot me an email or comment under the video for any suggestions that you may have. Thank you so very much.